dia 18 de dezembro de 1961. As tropas indianas estão estacionadas à volta da fronteira terrestre de Goa e têm luz verde para avançar e conquistar Goa. É o dia da derrota, é o dia do final de 451 anos de poder colonial português e é o dia da vitória para os indianos. É o dia que os indianos celebram, dia 19 de dezembro, celebram como a libertação de Goa. Foi há 48 anos e, portanto, há relatos vivos, de testemunhas desses dias, alguns dos quais não nos deixam muito orgulhosos como portugueses. Os nossos compatriotas que aqui estavam a defender o território deixaram marcas na pele daqueles que lutavam pela independência desta terra. Esses relatos que queremos partilhar convosco, ao som deste hino que se chama A Madrugada, composto pelo Sigmund Souza e que celebra a véspera do ataque.
Pois saune aiku quieta Halo nastana zara peda Varo azun bobu kyogna.
1947, India got their independence. Quite naturally, considering the internationally what was going on, the revolutionary thought processes, the communism that came in various countries around the various regions around the world, Gandhi's Satyagraha movement, which won the youth all over the country. The fact that a lot of Goans were working in Bombay and Calcutta and other parts of India. But naturally, when India got freedom, Goans, an overwhelming majority of Goans wanted to be free from the oppressive Salazar regime. That is the crux of the matter.
So when India became independent in 1947, there was naturally a ferment both in Goa and in India as to why should now Portugal continue in Goa. Already after the independence of India, the other British colonies also had become free. Colonialism was almost coming to an end and only Portuguese colonialism was sustained. So therefore, negotiations were going on, talks were going on, but Salazar was a recalcitrant, you may say. He was absolutely adamant. He said no. You know what he said. Anyway, he would not budge at all. And he said, no, Portugal will never leave Goa. That's what he said. Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru was a very, what should I say, he was a diplomat and he was a democrat. He tried to persuade Salazar as best as he could by in form of dialogue, through other people's negotiations, etc. But Salazar would have none of it. And his stronghold, or I say, on Goa became tighter and tighter.
Liberation is a long process in the last phase of our struggle for independence. It started on 18th June 1946 when Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, one of the leaders from, fiery leader from India, came here. And he was appalled to see the conditions here. There were no civil liberties whatsoever. Even people could not organize themselves. Even for religious matters, we had to, whatever the printout had to be censured, pre-censured. Even wedding cards had to be pre-censured. This kind of, it is really a kind of very oppressive this, and so he was very much appalled.
Lohia had arrived in Goa not to lead any movement. He had come here on the invitation of Dr. Julian Menezes, who was his friend, just to relax. And then Goan nationalist leaders such as Purushottam Kakodkar, who was the leader of the Goa Seva Sangh, Vasant Vaikunth Kare and many others met with Lohia and apprised him that we need to start a movement in Goa to regain our civil liberties.
So on 18th June There was a very strict law. He wanted to organize a public meeting, and which he did on 18th, in spite of advice by the Goan leaders.
Lohia arrived there at the scene. People greeted him with slogans, Lohia ki jai, as he alighted from the carriage, and he put his hand in his pocket and he was about to read his speech. And as he began reading his speech, the Portuguese police stopped him from doing that, and both Dr. Lohia as well as Julião Menezes was arrested and lodged in the Margam police station nearby.
But when he was arrested, it set like a fire, like a bush fire to all Goa.
And the people were in a completely defiant mood, and there were large crowds which gathered outside the Margam police station shouting nationalist, raising nationalist slogans, and Lohia came out of the lockup and pacified the crowd.
But though we dispersed at that time, all of us were determined. We were more agitated because of this arrest and the atrocities. I said that there has to be some answer to this.
On the 19th of June, there was a huge rally organized in Panjim.
So we again organized ourselves at about 4 p.m. in the evening and took out the procession. We went, as we were passing from the military headquarters, we again came, big posse of African soldiers led by one Agente Monteiro, not that Monteiro, his brother, not Casimiro Monteiro, his brother, yes, Anibal, otherwise not that bad person. So they were hidden there. So as soon as we reached to the gate, all of them African soldiers and this thing, they pounced on us. We were in fact children, mostly children and ladies, but they had no mercy. Irrespective of our age, tender age or anything, we were trodden, we were beaten, we ran helter-skelter everywhere to save us. Though I was arrested and beaten and again let off. Even my brother was there, he was too. And that was the end of the day. But Portuguese government was shaken because they could not, think of such agitation by the people, organizing by the people. So next day they released Dr. Ramana Lohia and the others were deported, like this teacher Manpat and all those. Deported in the sense across the border they were thrown. So this was the beginning.
On 18th of August 1946, as a fallout of the 18 June movement, the National Congress Goa was founded in Londa. National Congress Goa was a Satyagrahi organization, the leading Satyagrahi organization. They believed in the technique of Gandhiji, that is Satyagraha, truth and non-violence, to fight the Portuguese.
Satyagraha means persuasion, peaceful persuasion.
Satyagraha, its etymological root is Satya meaning truth and Agraha meaning holding unto the truth till the last breath of your life. And it is Satyagraha also means soul force. With the use of your soul force, with the use of the weapon of truth and weapon of non-violence. Satyagraha believes in non-violence. So, but Satyagraha is not passive. Satyagraha is active resistance, but with the use of your soul, that is Atma, with the use of your truth, truthful means, and with the use of non-violence, you are not running away from the cause. You are confronting the cause because it is the truthful cause, it is the righteous cause, and you are fighting it without using any weapon in your hand, but you are fighting for the cause. For example, Gandhiji protested against the salt tax of the British. He did not use any weapon. He led the morcha. He went and picked up the salt from the shore of Dandi. So to do the action, but without using any violence, with the use of non-violence. So that is Satyagraha. And in Goa you have men, women employing the Satyagraha technique by conducting rallies, morchas against the Portuguese rule and fighting for the truth, fighting for the cause of Goa's liberation.
The Indians also could not tolerate that India, the whole of India could not remain, it was not free. They decided that Goa now must be freed. If Goa itself cannot free itself from within because of the tight stronghold of Portugal, then we must also help the Goans who are our brothers to help them. So in 1954, there was a Satyagraha.
On 15th August 1954, the National Congress Goa decided to launch a mass Satyagraha in Goa, and they chose 3 Goan Catholic leaders, that is Mark Fernandez, Alfred Afonso and Anthony de Souza. So these 3 leaders led the Satyagraha at various borders of Goa. Anthony de Souza came from Paulin leading a Satyagraha. Mark Fernandez came from here, from Patradevi, and Alfred Afonso came from Tiracol, and Alfred Afonso planted the national tricolor on the Tiracol fort. So it was a major achievement.
So they came across the borders from India and trying to tell Salazar or trying to tell the authorities in Goa that they must leave Goa. But the Portuguese authorities over here, they just fired at them mercilessly and took away some prisoners, took some prisoners also. The rest of them died. As a consequence of this, there was naturally a outcry in India as to how can we let our people die like this for a cause which is just.
Unarmed Satyagrahis, these volunteers, including women, and how the in charge was, cigarette in one hand and glass of the beer there, table, and he was asking this. He was telling them, yes, they are entering, they are entering. Okay, he used to take his stain gun and fire. This was going on.
So in 1955, there was an organization called All Goa Vimochan Samiti. All the parties joined together. All the political parties joined together, and they said, now we will offer Satyagraha again in 1955 and go and convince the people, the Portuguese authorities, that they must leave Goa. And at that time, the Portuguese authorities were more brutal than in the past year. They shot at all the people. They did not realize what was Satyagraha. All that the Satyagraha is, those are the people who came to tell, were carrying Indian flags saying that Goa belongs to India, Portugal must leave. That is all that they were saying. These are the slogans. But the Portuguese authorities fired on them as if they were shooting animals, threw some of the bodies across the border and left the others there. That naturally completely upset the whole of India. And in a way, the only good thing about it is what? The whole world was able to see the brutalities and the barbaric acts of the Portuguese, and also the justness of the cause of Goa and India. That was very good.
And people from all over the country, as far as Punjab and various parts of the country, participated in this mass Satyagraha launched by the GVSS, that is Goa Vimochan Sahayak Samiti. And the 15th of August 1955 is a memorable day in the freedom struggle of Goa, and the scene was this Patradevi, which is the borders of Goa and Maharashtra. Satyagrahis in large numbers, they came in, and as they were entering the Goa border, the Portuguese police started firing at them, and there was this lady Sahodara Devi Rai, and she was holding the Indian tricolor in her hand, and one bullet hit her arm. So Sardar Karnail Singh, whom I consider as the hero in Goa's freedom struggle, he was at the rear of the Satyagraha. He was only 21 years old, so he could not tolerate this firing at the woman, and so he came forward and he challenged the Portuguese to hit at him instead of firing at a woman. So he came forward, removed his shirt, and challenged the Portuguese to fire at him, and the Portuguese fired at him in cold blood, and he was lying in a pool of blood and he died on the spot. Sardar Karnal Singh Banipal, he was only 21 years of age. In May 1955 he was married, and in August 1955 he sacrificed his life for the sake of Goa's freedom. Fortunately, you can see his name here, Martyr Sardar Karnal Singh Banipal from Ludhiana, Punjab, 15th August 1955, Patra Devi.
But then that's where opinion was slightly divided. There were those who were violent in seeking, they wanted to overthrow through violence, which was more influenced by the communist ideology. The communist ideology of the time means bring about change through violence. There were those who were Gandhians, who wanted to bring about change through peaceful movement, which unfortunately in Goa was met very rough-handedly by the Portuguese authorities.
The first martyr who died for Goa's freedom struggle was Balaraya Mapari. He was beaten to death by Casimiro Monteiro in the Mapsa police station on 18th of February 1955. He became the first martyr.
There was an Agente Casimiro Monteiro, who was apparently very brutal, and he killed many freedom fighters. He was famous for taking freedom fighters out, arresting them, and then taking them to a secluded spot and saying, now run, I'm setting you free. And as they walked away, he used to shoot them and kill them, or order his officers to kill them. There are lots of other atrocities I don't want to even mention, you know. And there was a prevailing atmosphere of fear in Goa. Nobody was willing to speak up, which even to this day, if you see, it's embedded in the psyche of Goans. They fear authority. Part of that comes from this period which went on up to the time when Agente Monteiro was here.
Following the killing of mass Satyagrahis on the different borders of Goa on 15th August 1955, the government of India decided to stop the Satyagrahis to marching into India because they did not want these indiscriminate killings of the Indian Satyagrahis.
The harm was already done. There were already people who were dead. There were people who were brutally tortured. The scars were too deep to start reconciliation at that time. So Goa's, the fact that the Goans wanted the Portuguese regime out was established. But not all wanted to join India. There were those who wanted to join India, and there were those who wanted autonomy. And a very small part of the population probably never wanted to break away with Portugal because there were family ties established with Portugal over 451 years. And that is basically why and how, you know, the freedom struggle in Goa started. There was a genuine freedom struggle.
There were three sections of people on the eve of Goa's liberation. There were freedom fighters who wanted Goa's liberation and integration with Mother India. Then there were a section of people who were pro-Portuguese, who wanted that the Portuguese rule should continue in Goa. And there were another set of people who wanted Goa to be an independent country. That was a small section. So you have three sets of opinion. The predominant was independence of Goa, liberation of Goa, and her integration with Mother India.
But then censorship was imposed in India, in Goa. Censorship was total. Not even an invitation card, a wedding invitation card could be published or could be sent out without the passado pelo censura. So that was the state of affairs. There was no, what you may say, communication between India and Goa. Therefore, there were no papers coming in. There was no information of any kind to the people of Goa. They were completely cut out in every way, and they did not know what was happening. Their only source of information was the emissora de Goa, which was Salazar's voice, and which managed to get some papers, I do not know how, and would they only make false propaganda about India and paint India in such a bad light that Goans would think that we do not want any link with India anymore. That is what it is. But they forgot that the blood that flew in the veins of the Goans was not Portuguese but Indian. So how could one's blood revolt against one's blood? That was not possible. Anyway, because the Indians were, the people in Goa were completely cut out from every source of information, the morale of the people was also going down. And they were completely desperate. So what are we going to do now? Because there was so much vigilance, so much suspicion, so much harassment over here, because they were tightening their stranglehold on the Goans. Everybody was suspect. They knew that a Goan was not a Portuguese, Goan could not favor Portugal, Goan had to love India, and Goan was in favor of India. So their suspicion and harassment increased. There were raids, there were searches, there were arrests, there were all sorts of harassment was going on. Then we decided that we cannot allow our brethren to remain in this darkness and ignorance. And then this was like a very peaceful, it appeared to be very peaceful, but it was the peace of the grave. And it was a total imprisonment, so to say. The only alternative was a radio. Now which radio? Indian radio was not going to favor us and do anything. So we decided on an underground radio. That the answer came in that form. But how to do it? How was it possible? Fortunately for us, Dadra and Nagar Haveli had been liberated. So when Dadra and Nagar Haveli were liberated, just before the liberation, Portuguese had taken some high-powered transmitters to Dadra and Nagar Haveli to beam broadcasts of emissora to Goa from Nagar Haveli and to whatever it is. We made use of those transmitters and we said we can now use them for our purpose. And that is how we established the radio.
But there were a group of young men who were not happy with the Gandhian ideology. So they said that to fight the Portuguese, we will use the violent means which were used by Bhagat Singh, Chandrasekhar Azad in the context of India. And here they established the Azad Gomantak Dal. And it was founded by Vishwanath Lavande, and they had leaders such as Mohan Ranade, Balkrishna Bhosle, Prabhakar Sinari, Narayan Hari Naik, Tukaram Kankondkar, and many others.
We organized ourselves a group which came to be later on known as Azad Gomantak Dal, a revolutionary group. At that time, only Banco Ultramarine could operate here. No other banks were permitted. And the practice was they used to bring the cash and whatever the checks collected in Mapsa to Panjim every evening when the bank was closed. So we intercepted the bus. Whatever that we could remove, we removed from those bankers and came. For our misfortune, somebody had identified us. So as we were proceeding, police were watching us. On the way, they closed in. And so I had no alternative, and the other one, so I was arrested. So they sent us to Rejmagos. But all the time I was thinking of escape. There are two cells. One is that one and this one another. I was put there for quite long in this cell. The window was hardly about 9 inches with also grade. No other for ventilation. Now inside I see it has been plastered. It was not plastered, it was crude. And from the top, some water was leaking down. So all the time the ground and all this used to remain damp and rather wetty. So in that circumstances, and nobody could speak to me. That way, I was taken only once in the day and once in the evening, and whatever that urine and other thing collected, I had myself to throw out. So I and that young Navy man, I said, let us escape. So he was prepared. And then we both joined, we winked eye. So it's to mean that he is also ready. And I said, I am also ready. So we saw that daily African soldiers used to escort the prisoner with the basket of the all that rubbish collected, and from that top it was being thrown out. And we came here, I and he. I chose this one and then he chose that one. And as we were trying to throw, we threw the tin with the garbage and jumped down. Now I cannot see even that. I cannot also believe myself what I did. But our estimation that we thought it was a nice, must be nice cushion, and we will be landing on the cushion. And we were trying that. You know, if more force is there, we should have to come on our buttocks, which is natural, this cushion and for us. But the moment we found it, it was so sloppy, so it rolled down. When we saw those soldiers there, then we chose this route to cemetery down to the left side of the fort. And by the time we reached there, cemetery, which you can see from here, they fired on us. So, but what happened when we went that the cemetery, one cemetery is there, while running helter-skelter, they opened on us. They opened fire, 1, 2, 3, 4, that was going on. One. To our bad luck, some African soldiers were taking bath on that fountain. That is to be practiced there, but we had never expected. We thought it will be just we and that the sentries, but it happened different story. So when we started to avoid anything direct heat, we entered that cemetery, and through this we gone. But because of those opening fire on us, the African soldier who were taking bath here got alerted, and then they chased us, and finally we were able to caught, because we were also very with that impact, not that active, so they could easily overpower us and then started beating, all that kind of thing.
Prabhakar Sinari esteve preso mais 4 anos, aqui no Forte dos Reis Magos, no Forte Aguada, e finalmente conseguiu fugir quando estava hospitalizado no Old Medical College. Foi mais tarde conselheiro do exército indiano, acompanhou as tropas no dia da conquista de Goa, no dia da libertação, no dia 18 de dezembro de 1961, e é essa história que fica por contar. Procurámos ouvir os relatos do que foi meio século de luta pela independência de Goa, através de quem a viveu, de quem escreveu sobre ela, e através da voz da rádio pirata, que fez história ao contar diariamente o que era a libertação de Goa. No próximo programa vamos debruçar-nos sobre o dia 18 de dezembro de 1961. De modo que espero que daqui a 15 dias esteja connosco no próximo Contacto Goa.
The radio was called the Voice of Freedom, Voz de Liberdade. We were broadcasting in Portuguese and in Konkani. Vaman Sardesai was doing it in Portuguese, and I was doing it in Konkani. For some time we had another gentleman to do it in Portuguese. His name was Nicolau Menezes. He was a very old man, so he could not tolerate the rigors of a forest life, because it was in a forest where there was a complete no communication with anybody. It was only the radio and we. So he could not go through those rigors. Within a few months he could not continue, so we were left, the two of us. What had happened was, since we started, since it was so popular and the people so much wanted to hear more about it, more from it, we continued. And right from 1955, 25th November, that was particularly important to us, you know, because it was the day that Goa was subjugated. We called it Conquista de Goa. So we wanted to sort of have that day, observe that day and commemorate that day as a day of freedom. And we started the radio on that day and naturally ended only on the day of liberation, that is 19 December 1961. So, both these dates are very important for the radio. Now, we broadcast in Konkani and Portuguese at 7 o'clock in the morning and at 8 o'clock in the evening regularly every day in Portuguese and in Konkani. The Portuguese tried to jam this radio because they did not, particularly the Konkani broadcast, because everybody could understand it. But they were not jamming the Portuguese broadcast so much because they themselves wanted to hear and know, and they could understand it. Anyway, that was good for us because there were many people who knew Portuguese and who would listen to the Portuguese broadcast and then share it with the others. So, it did not matter. But anyway, both the broadcasts were very popular to the end. And I think if I am known today, it's only because of the broadcast. And I like the idea that I am also referred to as the voice of freedom.